Keeping the golden goose laying them eggs, looking after it.
Don't take any risks.
Thing is, with Anthony Joshua, he's Olympic gold medalist, and in the UK he's a massive star. He sells out stadiums, 70,000, 90,000.
Huge star.
Huge star.
I say it's a win-win for Jake Paul is because, listen, if he wins, then he's beating a former heavyweight boxing world champion, certainly one of the best heavyweights of his generation, and of course, a man that is way bigger than Jake Paul. Of course, it's a win. And if he loses, it's still a win for Jake Paul because he had the balls. He was man enough. He was willing to test himself. He would prove everyone wrong, all his critics.
Come out the blue, but it's intriguing. And I think from Jake's perspective, I think, he's had a lot of criticism about he is a pro boxer now. The way you want to look at it, he trains as a pro, but, and he's fighting as a pro. They said it's about time he fought some.
The boxing world just hit a boiling point, and everyone is pointing fingers at Anthony Joshua. Joe Rogan and Tyson Fury tear into the talk surrounding a potential Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua showdown, questioning why Joshua would step into something so untraditional. They insist Joshua's camp seems far more interested in business than real competition. A decision, they say, doesn't match the warrior spirit of a heavyweight king. But wait. Fury stresses that if Joshua truly wants legacy, he should be targeting him, or Deontay Wilder, the real mountains of the division. To them, picking Jake Paul feels less like a challenge and more like a calculated business play.
Because this is a business at the end of the day. And if I was his management team, I'd say stay away from Fury, stay away from Wilder, and we'll just fight the rest of the people and keep making plenty of money. Why do we need to fight?
Michael Bisping approaches the whole situation with sharp logic. He argues Jake Paul is stepping into a scenario with zero downside, and that's exactly what makes it dangerous. Bisping says Jake has positioned himself so cleverly that a win would create shockwaves, and even a loss would elevate his status. But here's where it gets interesting. If Jake somehow caught Joshua, even by chance, he would instantly gain the credibility critics say he will never achieve. Defeating a former unified heavyweight champion would be historic. But even if Jake loses, Bisping believes he still wins, because he dared to stand across from an elite heavyweight. That bravery narrative helps Jake, while the pressure sits squarely on Joshua. For AJ, anything less than total dominance becomes a problem.
Out there on an island by myself, everyone says the same thing, and he would potentially prove all of those critics wrong. Well, yeah, he would, maybe, unless there's some funny business, right? And for Anthony Joshua, as I said, this is kind of a lose-lose, right? Because if he wins, people are still going to say, well, you only beat Jake Paul, right? The man that lost to Tommy Fury, after all, right? That's the only loss in his record, Tommy Fury. You're telling me that Tommy Fury is going to beat him, and then Anthony Joshua's not going to beat him? So if he beats him, he gets no credit. And if he loses, then holy can you imagine? That would be the biggest downfall of any boxer's career. The reality is, he's not going to lose. There is no way on this earth that Jake Paul can beat Anthony Joshua in a boxing match. That's just a fact, okay? Look at what he did to Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou hits as hard as a Ford Escort, going 100 miles an hour or whatever that stat was. Comes from the UFC. He was the UFC heavyweight champion of the world. Has a good go against Tyson Fury, but goes up against Anthony Joshua and gets flatlined. Every single punch that was thrown was landed, and every punch that landed put Francis Ngannou down, okay? So to stand there and think that Jake Paul, who's much, much smaller, who has way less experience, that doesn't weigh anything near him, is going to have a chance, and not to mention the technical abilities. Let's just talk about that. Not to mention the technical abilities or experience. We're talking about an Olympic gold medalist, remember, from back in the day, who's then gone on to become a true British boxing icon, or a worldwide boxing icon, let's be honest, right? There's no way that he loses.
Joe Rogan reminds fans exactly who Anthony Joshua really is: an Olympic gold medalist and one of the most dangerous punchers alive. He believes Joshua would walk into this fight with one mission: make an example out of Jake Paul. Rogan insists Joshua wouldn't just try to win, but wait, he would try to teach Jake Paul a lesson about what real heavyweight power feels like. For Joshua, it becomes less of a fight and more of a statement sent across the entire boxing world.
Oh my God, if he beat Anthony Joshua, good Lord, Good Lord. I mean, that's a big if, right?
I mean,
Anthony Joshua,
I do not think-
Olympic gold
Yes.
medalist, former heavyweight champion of the world. What he did to Francis Ngannou,
I
like,
know.
good Lord.
Yes.
Do you want that smoke?
Yeah, I just think it's all about the promotion or whatever. I have no idea what the actual motivation is for that fight's not competitive at all.
Well, it's a dangerous fight.
Yeah.
Because Joshua's going to try to make an example out of him,
Yes.
for sure.
And will.
And will. I mean, Anthony
I know.
Joshua is one of the biggest one-punch KO artists ever.
Yes.
I mean, he's a one-punch fucking night-night guy.
Yeah.
You know, he's a great boxer.
Frank Warren sees the situation from a sharper, more suspicious angle. He says the entire idea came out of nowhere, and all signs point to Jake Paul being the one chasing this fight. Warren believes Jake is exhausted by constant criticism that he only faces older or smaller opponents. Here's where things get serious. According to Warren, Jake wants a matchup that shuts every critic up forever, and fighting Joshua does exactly that. Promoters never expected this conversation, especially not from Jake's side. It sounds like a stunt. Yet Warren admits Jake seems determined to prove he's ready for a real heavyweight test.
Both. It's not a fight I even thought of. I mean, it's nothing to do with me to start with. I mean, it come out of the blue, but it's intriguing. And I think from Jake's perspective, I think, you know, he's had a lot of criticism about, he is a pro boxer now. The way you want to look at it, he trains as a pro, but, you know, and he's fighting as a pro. They said it's about time he fought some. I've seen some of the stuff, you know, that's been said. When's he going to fight someone? Well, I mean, he's gone from one extreme to the other. You know, that's what he's doing. So if that fight happens, you've got to take your hat off to him.
He got called out by Andre Ward, AJ. Would you rather see Jake fight AJ, which is obviously, as we know, a mismatch, or Andre Ward, who's been retired for, 4 years?
I'd much rather see AJ fight Tyson.
Oh, please. I dread to think how many
we
times
don't know if
you've
that's
done
going to
this.
happen because the big man, he's filming, he's not made his mind up what he's going to do.
Ben Davison doesn't hold back at all. When comparing Jake Paul to Anthony Joshua, he points directly to Francis Ngannou's loss to Joshua. He highlights that Ngannou, a true heavyweight with terrifying power, couldn't survive Jay's explosiveness. But wait for this. If a giant like Ngannou couldn't remain standing, Davidson argues Jake Paul has no realistic chance whatsoever. The gap between elite heavyweights and crossover fighters is too deep. He makes it clear he's not insulting Jake, just stating how absurd the matchup looks when measured by real boxing standards.
Fight like Francis Ngannou is one of the most durable men on the planet, and look at what happened there. I don't think he's good for boxing, if I'm honest.
I was about to ask, obviously, if we were to see that fight, AJ would be a heavy favourite with, I'd imagine, 99.9999% of the sport. How quickly would you expect to see Anthony Joshua get the job done against Jake Paul?
He could go in there and do what he wanted. He could play with him if he wanted to.
Spencer Oliver brings a surprisingly different perspective. He says there's something symbolic happening here, something much bigger than boxing technique. Oliver compares this moment to the unusual fights Muhammad Ali once took that attracted global attention. But the twist is this: if Joshua accepts a fight with Jake Paul, it could pull millions of new viewers into the sport, especially young audiences who follow influencers more than athletes. Oliver believes Joshua could expand his star power and tap into a new era of entertainment-driven boxing. Even if the skill gap is huge, the worldwide buzz would be undeniable.
Goes in, pops him a few times in the face, walks out of 150 million quid. No one will remember the fact he fought Jake Paul. They'll remember the fact he knocked Klitschko out in Wembley in 2017.
Totally agree with that.
So I'm kind of, whilst I don't like it, and I don't like the way that Jake Paul gravitates to these brilliant athletes and like a moth sucks the life out of them because he gets a benefit of association, because I think they deserve all the association. But he is a and there is opportunity there, isn't there?
Listen, commercially, of course it works because it'll be huge and there'll be a load of money on the table. And for Anthony Joshua, it's like sort of, he's going to get rewarded very well with no risk, minimal risk, no risk at all. He's going to go in there and he may then put all this stuff to bed with Jake Paul and calling out all these different champions, etc., etc. So, of course it works. And when you're talking about, you know, the credibility that Joshua's going to get, he's not going to get none now, but are people going to remember that? Of course they're not. Like, when he goes on to do what he does, didn't Muhammad Ali have some sort of strange fight in the middle of his career? Didn't he box? Yeah, he did. He boxed some non-boxing guy and whatnot. Like, people don't remember that. That's what I'm saying. Look, us as boxers, we don't remember stuff like that.
It was replicated in Rocky. So, he did a version of Fighting Thunderlips, didn't he? So we all know.
Joseph Parker takes a more traditional stance. He believes Joshua should stay focused on legitimate heavyweight contenders if he wants to protect his legacy. In Parker's view, influencer fights do nothing for Joshua's career, and only distract from real championship paths. He says true competition is the only thing that keeps AJ's name relevant.
Jake has said that he's interested in doing Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul.
Let's talk about fights that make sense. Jake Paul's doing whatever Jake Paul does. If Joshua's serious about wanting to stay in boxing, then fight good, real fights, if that's what you want to do. I mean, if you want to go down this other road and do this, then that's by all means do it. But it's a different journey and it's a different pathway. I think as fighters who've been in the game for a long time, I want real fights. If I was given the opportunity to fight Jake Paul, would I take it? No.
Not even for the money, no.
No, like I want to be champion of the world. That's my goal.
Chael Sonnen pours cold water on the entire discussion. He thinks the world jumped into this story way too quickly, without any official confirmation. Sonnen reminds everyone that Joshua spent nearly 2 decades building respect, discipline, and professionalism. But here's the part fans need to hear. He argues Joshua risking all of that for Jake Paul simply doesn't add up. Sonnen warns that many lifelong fans would feel betrayed if this matchup became real. He says until promoters or the fighters confirm negotiations, this is nothing more than a rumor gone wild.
Done, right? Isn't that what we were all told? And I had reached out to Jake directly. But he didn't get back to me. I did get a response, but it was like, you know the response where somebody's like buying some time, or they just want to acknowledge, like they give you a receipt. I'm in receipt of your text message. They can give you an emoji or something like this, or sometimes there's even the automatic. I'm trying to remember what I got, but you can get like the automatic, I'll call you later. You know those? So even though I had said, hey, I'm looking for a confirmation of this fight, and he did respond, as I reflect back on that, it's like, well, he didn't respond confirming the fight. So, who did confirm the fight? So, I went to Helwani, and Helwani thought that it was confirmed, but he was a little lighter in the language than what I thought I remember hearing. And there's a number of boxing guys just saying, hey, that's not going to happen. And they had a few details, one of which was being Florida. And the Florida Commission would probably be open to something like this, particularly under the clause of exhibition. And then we'd all have to kind of hear, well, what are those rules and what are those stipulations? But that's reasonable to work with. But we haven't been able to get a confirmation from the Florida Commission. And now we're actually getting boxing guys on the inner circle. We're hearing from some British guys, from some fellow comrades to Joshua that said he wouldn't do that fight. He just wouldn't do that fight. That people would lose respect for him. That he has carried British boxing. This was one guy talking, but the guy said that Joshua has carried British boxing for 2 decades. And that while carrying British boxing on his back, if he was to go over and do a spoof fight against a YouTuber, now I don't look at Jake Paul that way. I look at him as a badass. I understand how greatly he is outmatched. I understand the lack of experience in comparison to Joshua. Believe me, I get it. But I don't dismiss him as a YouTuber, right? Look at him as a guy that went to the distance with Tommy Fury, not for nothing. So, when I'm listening to this gentleman talk, it does make me think, hey,
Simon Jordan delivers one of the bluntest takes of all. He calls the idea stupid and completely disconnected from real boxing standards. Jordan admits the money might be enormous, maybe one of Joshua's biggest paydays ever. But wait, he argues the sport loses value when elite athletes prioritize spectacle over genuine competition. To Jordan, the matchup is unbalanced, unnecessary, and insulting to fighters who worked decades to reach Joshua's level.
For a fight between Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul in December. What does it tell us, Simon? Does it tell us more, as I said in the introduction, about the falling star of AJ or the rising one of Jake Paul?
It tells you that there's a huge opportunity for enormous amounts of money to be generated around a fight that really has no integrity behind it in terms of as a fight, but in terms as a media spectacle and entertainment opportunity. You've got a very talented YouTuber that's built himself into a massive influence with huge following, and you've got a former 2-time champion of the world that operates at a very high level of engagement. Whether he's a high level of performer anymore is a different discussion. So it becomes about how much can this fight generate, how many eyes on the prize. I mean, I spoke to his very close friend, Michael Jarman, about this very fight about 3 or 4 months ago, and he was like, "Oh, what do you think?" I said, "What difference does it make? Oh, it would potentially jeopardise his legacy. His legacy's sealed. You cannot undo the fact, whatever you think of Anthony Joshua,
It might
as a
damage
fighter,
it.
I don't think so. What it will do is increase his
Yeah.
bank balance. But I think in the great, I mean, it didn't damage Muhammad Ali's reputation to go in with a sumo wrestler, did it?
No, but after, when Joshua was at his peak, Simon, if I had said to you there and then, do you know what? Maybe in December 2025, Anthony Joshua will fight a YouTuber.
This is the entertainment business, and Anthony Joshua is an entertainer, and you can't undo the fact that he won the world heavyweight championship twice. And he fought in some great fights.
So why does he need this?
Because he's in the business of entertainment. And if an opportunity is presented to him and someone wants to say that we can monetize this to the huge levels that are potentially available, why wouldn't you? It's a walk in the park.
You see, you're not having Saturday night.
Because I know
many...
Tony Bellew jumps in with skepticism of his own. He doesn't believe the fight is real unless both men are actually in the ring. Bellew says boxing has drifted too far from its roots, and this matchup would only make things worse. Here's what he emphasizes. A fight of this size requires endless negotiations, contracts, sponsors, broadcasters, and governing bodies. Bellew cannot imagine serious institutions supporting a matchup that looks more like a circus than a legitimate contest. He believes it may stay a rumor forever.
Done yet, but very, very likely. 8-rounder, and the reported figure is £70 million. When you see it unfold, what's your thoughts?
I don't believe a single thing until literally I see them in a ring together. He was supposed to fight Gervonta Davis, wasn't he? Who's 5 stone lighter and is 5 stone lighter and 8 inches shorter. So I don't believe anything. Until they're in a ring together, I don't believe nothing.
Obviously, AJ was meant to fight in an 8-rounder. I think Eddie said to me earlier against...
In an 8-rounder?
Yeah, okay. Against a top 120 opponent on BoxRec that none of us would have heard of.
Okay.
Just a kind of confidence, go and get a knockout type victory. I suppose you can go and do that against Jake Paul and earn an absolute fortune from
Listen, I've said before and I'll say it again. Boxing is a brutal, brutal business. Go and make as much as you can, as quick as you can. Once you've achieved your dream and goals of becoming a world champion, there's nothing left to do besides make money. What are you chasing? You've won all the belts. You know, I think he's missing a WBC. I think that's about it. Go and get the belts and that's it. Move on.
Do you believe it should be sanctioned?
What I believe doesn't matter.
No, but I'm just curious.
What I believe doesn't matter because some governing body will. Of
course.
Or some sanctioning body will.
Of course.
Some
the Florida State
organisation. Yeah, absolute maniacs. But you know, that's another argument. That's another cause. It's like the one I heard Chris Eubank Senior talking about on the radio the other day. He's talking about safety of fighters. Champ, you were the worst for it. You went up to cruiserweight when you were super middleweight and didn't do it once but twice. And then you...
That wraps up today's video. Stay tuned because the next update could change everything.